Welcome back to another YouTube channel video. Today we're back with the LC500, and don't worry, we're not going to be talking bad about this car. Today we're going to be talking about some of the really unique features that this car has that you don't really see on some other cars in this segment or any cars in general. And I'm not talking about the carbon door panels or the trunk or the Lexus bolts that they put on the doors. I'm talking about some really interesting things that people just don't point out. But having spent some time with this car, I got to learn it really well, and I found some really interesting things along the way. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, and we're going to start under the hood where this beautiful 5-liter V8 lives. Alright, like I mentioned, this car has a 5-liter V8, the 2UR GSE, that pushes out 471 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque. It sends this car from 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. But there's more to the story. This engine was co-designed with Yamaha, where Yamaha really focused on the design of the heads to ensure high flow and less turbulent airflow into the cylinders themselves. And the inlet valves are actually made out of titanium. And those connecting rods for the pistons, yeah, those are forged. So this engine is super strong and allows this engine to rev all the way out to 7,300 RPMs. And man, does it sound good. Now for the other things, I gotta take all this plastic off, so let me do that first. Now this is something you don't see every day. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to point it out, and that's why I took off all this plastic. First, let's take a look at this intake box. You have this small little intake that routes air into the box, into the filter, and you have duals, so it meets in the center and it flows into the intake plenum, and then you make all that power, right? But there's something else that's really interesting. If you take a look underneath the intake box, there's a small pipe that connects to the bottom of it, and if you follow it, it actually routes right to the firewall. And what this allows for is even more induction noise in the cabin as you're driving the car, and man, it makes a big difference. But other than these small little intakes, you also have this right here. It's a little flap that opens up at 3,500 RPMs and allows for more air to come into that intake box, and it isn't just restricted by that small little opening, and it allows for, you guessed it, more induction noise. So I'm going to set up the tripod so you guys can actually see what it's doing in action. It's pretty cool to see. And it happens on both sides, and I have to say that's pretty damn cool. And for how rare and special and unique this car is, it's actually really easy to do service and maintenance on this vehicle. So let's take a look at this intake box. You know how normally on cars you got those 4 clips, then you got to wrestle with the box and kind of pry it out in order to change your air filter? Well, with this car, you have 2 on each side, of course, because of the dual intakes. But all you have to do is unhook these 2 clips, and this air filter just slides right on out. Super easy to service. And then you could just easily slide it right back in, clip these back into place, and you are good to go. And that's not the only place where this car is really easy to maintain and really easy to access. There's other places that we'll talk about. And these strut towers are made from aluminum, not steel, so they're even lighter. But don't worry, they're still strong, they're still rigid. They've got these cross braces that run from the front and the back of the vehicle to ensure that they stay in place. And during the development of this car, Lexus had a little bit of a challenge. They needed to find a way to bond aluminum and steel together, which is found throughout this entire frame. There's parts that are steel, there's parts that are aluminum, and as you know, it's not that easy to just bond them together. You can't weld them. So they actually made these self-piercing rivets to hold them together, and this all combined together allows for this car to be 60% stiffer than the Lexus GS chassis, and even stiffer than the LFA supercar. So this is the most rigid, at least torsionally, chassis that Lexus has ever made. Another little quirk about this car and the engine bay before we close it all up is the explosive charges. Yep, this car has explosive charges in the hood because it is so dang low. So for pedestrian safety, this is implemented. So if this car unfortunately hit a pedestrian, those explosive charges would go off on all four corners and it would pop the hood open a few inches. This would provide a small cushion for that pedestrian so they don't impact the engine or the engine block or the heads right away. There's a small little cushion, so hopefully it makes it a little bit safer. All right, that wraps it up for the hood. Let's take a look at some of the other unique features of this vehicle. Now, let's talk suspension. Now, this car has some pretty interesting stuff up front. First of all, this car uses a double ball joint split upper control arm design, which allows for even better driving feel, steering input feel, and a little bit more of a connection between the road and the steering wheel for the driver as you are driving the car. Oh yeah, and not to mention that those are made out of forged aluminum. If I sneak my camera in here, you can kind of see the one on the left side, and then there's another split A-arm on the right side. So you've got two split A-arms here. And do you remember how I was talking about service and the ease of maintenance? Yeah, well, take a look at this. This is the mount for the upper control arms on the actual chassis itself. And as you can see, there are 3 bolts facing you so that you can easily just zip those bolts out and pull that upper control arm off. And another reason why they use those split upper control A-arm design is because the hood is so low. They had to split those apart and position them in a way so that you can get this beautiful low slung hood line. Now, before we move anywhere else, we've got one more thing to talk about, and that is the brakes. This uses a 2-piece rotor. So you have your traditional steel rotor, but the inner part right there, you can see it's got bolts on it. That's aluminum. Now, what this is good for is heat dissipation. That aluminum is going to shed heat a lot better than steel, and it's also a lighter material, so you have less unsprung mass and rotational mass on this vehicle. And I think this is one that everyone knows now, but these paddle shifters are actually made out of magnesium, not some cheap plastic or anything like that. It's actually made out of magnesium metal, and they feel really good and they give a satisfying click when you pull them in. So that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. We all know about those unique features that everyone talks about, that taillight design that looks like it's going into the rear bumper forever, or the door panels that are made out of carbon, and the Lexus bolts that are specially made for this car. But those were some of the things that I found that no one really talked about, and as I spent some time with this car, I was able to find. And yes, a lot of them were under the hood in the engine, but that's what really makes this car special, so that makes a lot of sense. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something new about this really, really unique vehicle, and I hope you like it as much as I do. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. We're gonna have this car on the channel a lot more, so let me know what you want to see with this vehicle in particular, or if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.